Assalamu alaikum, everybody. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ameen. Uh, Welcome, everybody. We're continuing our reading of the 13th word, and we're starting a subsection within the 13th word titled The Second Station of the 13th word. Um, the general discussion has been started with a um, an explanation, a description of the verse, or let's say tafsir of the verse. And we send down in the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy to those who believe. And it was from chapter Isra, verse 82. And we had discussed several themes, and you can definitely refer to the recordings. The general themes included studying about the nature of the Quran, our approach to it, method of our investigation as human beings, as conscious human beings in this life, and what the claim of the Quran means to a human being who is in search of making sense and articulating their experience in their experienced reality or their witnessed reality. So I believe generally the general theme is going to be continuing in this second station of the 13th word, and we'll just start reading it. It is structured more like a response to a question, as you'll see, and there will be it's more of a straightforward reading, and we'll see what questions, thoughts come up. And as usual, feel free to raise your hand and ask questions and help me also think through things as I read them. So we can start. Bismillah. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, a conversation held with some young people who, though surrounded by temptation, had not yet lost their power of reason. Being assaulted by the deceptive, seductive amusements of the present time, a group of young people were asking, how can we save our lives in the hereafter? And they sought help from the Risale-e-Nur. So I said the following to them in the name of the Risale-e-Nur. The grave is there and no one can deny it. Whether they want to or not, everyone must enter it. And apart from the following three ways, there is no other way it can be approached. First way, for those who believe the grave is the door to a world far better than this world. Second way, for those who believe in the hereafter, but who approach it on the path of dissipation and misguidance. It is the door to a prison of solitary confinement, an eternal dungeon where they will be separated from all their loved ones. Third way, for the unbelievers and the misguided who do not believe in the hereafter, it is the door to eternal extinction. That is to say, it is the gallows on which both themselves and all those they love will be executed. Since they think it is thus, that is exactly how they shall experience it, as punishment. These last two ways are self-evident. They do not require proof. They are plain for all to see. Since the appointed hour is secret, and death may come any time and cut off his head, and it does not differentiate between young and old, perpetually having such an awesome and serious matter before him. Unhappy man will surely search for the means to deliver himself from that eternal extinction, that infinite, endless, solitary confinement, the means to transform the door of the grave into a door opening onto an everlasting world, eternal happiness, and a world of light. It will be a question for him that looms as large as the world. Just one second, I'm going to close my window. Okay. So just in just briefly summarizing the reading so far, um, it's a group of young people who come to the author of the text that we read and who are surrounded by temptation, and we can unpack these words more. But what caught my attention in the first sentence was that they're these young people, let's say they're in some sort of discomfort, trouble, distress of some sort, um, and or things are not making sense. I think that a lot of young people can relate to that. But what was interesting is that the author says that they had not yet lost their power of reason. As I was reading it, I was thinking, one can say, and we do hear that when people say that, oh, this person, for example, lives in a city where it's very open, and there are all of these like amusements and activities and pleasure around them, but they did not lose their faith in God, or they did not um, they fear God, or they have a fear of something, and so that's why um, uh, they did not participate or succumb to those things. So, in contrast to that sort of way of looking at it, um, this caught my attention that the author chooses the word reason instead of any of the other terms like fear or faith or any things that we might be more familiar with in our own religious contexts. So, being assaulted by the deceptive, seductive amusements of the present time, these students come and they ask, how can we save our lives in the hereafter? And they sought help from the Risale Nur. Another couple of points that come to me as I was thinking about this was the expression being assaulted by the deceptive, seductive amusements of the present time. I was thinking to myself that, to asking myself, like, do I think that, let's say, an amusement that, one can consider it an amusement, like, let's say, going out to have ice cream with a few friends, or spending time going watching a movie, doing different activities that we generally term as enjoyment in our worldview right now, the worldview of the majority society that we all live in. Do we find that it is assaulting us? Like, do we find this to be true in our condition? I don't think it immediately occurs to us that, let's say, socializing in a certain manner, or going out and quote unquote enjoying restaurants or different plenty of other activities are assaulting. But there is a experience that these youth are going through that uh, term that make them, let's say, um, harmful is one way, but assaulting is strong in the sense that um, it's hurting them, and yeah. So that's one question that I had in mind. If others also have ways to ask or relate to themselves, like, you know, what does the author mean by the assault and deception of the amusements of the present time? Then moving on, they sought help from the Risale Nur, which again was an interesting point just as a reader, is that the author is not saying that they sought help from me. even though it is obvious that the author is the author of the Risale-i-Nur, but there is something else, I'm sure, that is implied in saying the Risale-i-Nur than saying that they sought help from me. And so I said the following to them in the name of the Risale-i-Nur, just as this expression over here seems also very similar to the expression up here in the name of God. So there's something that the author wants to communicate about these writings that separate his, I guess, personal hood from the teachings that are communicated in these set of writings that we read on Saturdays. So the main concern that the students are coming up with is that what I believe that the author is implying, that they have not lost their power of reason, is that they understand that very clearly that death is to come, and it is inevitable, it is certain, it will happen, and there is no denying it. There is no experience proof that anybody, whether they believe in the hereafter or don't believe in the hereafter, it's beyond any sort of rational or any kinds of proof to deny something as death for anyone, any human being, any living entity that we observe in this world. So they are very certain of this, even though I think many people are certain of this reality. You can still live with it as if it does not have the weight in your day to day as something else. So there's no denying the reality, yet in the case of these students or these youths, let's say, they are fundamentally concerned by it, so they take it seriously. And so the author offers them three ways, and he says that there is no other way it can be approached. And I would need help thinking about whether there is a fourth way, or why just these three. And so these three include, obviously, if you believe that the grave is the door to something after this, so it is not the end, but it is a means, and it is a means, it is a symbol, it is a sign to something other than itself, which is just death for the sake of death, and that's it. The second way was a little bit unclear to me, that these are the people who believe in the hereafter, but who approach it on the path of dissipation and misguidance. It is the door to a prison of solitary confinement. So they believe in the hereafter, but they approach it in the path of dissipation and misguidance. I need help understanding what exactly this second way is. One thought that comes to my mind is that this is someone who believes without actually confirming it within themselves, but believe, I guess, in the way of not being able to deny it completely. It's definitely something in the middle of the first and the third. So not able to deny it completely, not able to, but also not able to accept it through their own conclusion and from their experience, from their reality, both using their emotions and their reason. And in this middle second way, they still find it, they accept it, but still find it limiting to who they feel or understand themselves to be. And the third way is also quite clear. So the first and third are quite the two ends of the scale. For the third way is people who are unbelieving, misguided, just completely observe this as an eternal extinction, and so because they think of it as this complete nothingness, they will experience it as such, which is to which is a scary or a fearful thought in and of itself, to understand that I, as a human being who finds himself or herself with the desire of continued existence, or let's say conscious existence, like I desire my conscious to be aware and a consciously experiencing myself and the creation around me, that this would somehow be completely taken away or end is a deeply uncomfortable thought, that you will cease to experience and be aware completely. And ultimately, that is the source of fear. Um, yeah. So if someone believes that, then they will experience it as such, because that will be the limit of how much they have trained their conscious understanding and about who they are. I think the example that we always use, and it's always a helpful one, about being in the school of life or the school of the universe, you will get the result to comparable to however much that you study. And that makes sense. And in this case, studying is the cultivation of one's conscious awareness of their reality. And however much you are able to be aware of the reality through exercising, or through being aware of your consciousness, is what you must experience in the experience that is claimed to occur after physical or bodily death in this world. Just to finish up this paragraph, and before anyone else wants to chime in, was interesting that this author is saying that these two last ways are self-evident. And I think we can start this particular discussion. Agape, you had your hand up if you wanted to go ahead. If not, it's okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask actually, which you said self-evident means what? Let's say if it means like, because these last two ways, if you already feel the hell within this, because you will start feeling this hell in this world. So how does it differentiate from first way? Like, one can say, if you feel in the first way, then you will also start feeling the heaven in this world. And another thing we hear from tradition, that there's no eternal non-existence, but in this third way it says like door to eternal extinction. That was my another question. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for bringing those up. So in terms of the first question, like like these last two ways are self-evident. It is true that I definitely read them as that it is part of human experience. Anyone who is questioning or thinking or is aware will realize that, or actually, that they're so self-evident in the fact that you have an eternal desire to live, or to live a conscious life, yet there is a looming and certain death. And so this contradiction is self-evident and all to see. And so to realize that, oh, my eternal desires will have an end where they will not be fulfilled, is evident. It's already there. That's the contradiction. Whereas in the first way, in order to resolve this contradiction, one has to pursue this question further and investigate further, but the contradiction is self-evident. And so the second, third way to me are representing someone experiencing the contradiction but not doing anything about it. And so their conclusion is that they accept the contradiction as it is, and take the result as torture, that the result of this contradiction is torture, and so they just accept it as it is without resolving it. So I hope that made sense in the differentiating the first and the other two. And your second question was that, if I'm remembering it clearly, that in tradition it says that there is no such thing as eternal punishment, but over here it talks about eternal extinction. I read it as these people who do not believe, so to them it is a door to eternal extinction. So because they have perceived this to be true, they will experience this as such. But that does not mean that if they realize or they come to a realization that this is actually not true, that their experience of the hereafter will not match their change in perception. So it is an eternal punishment for the one who perceives and concludes that this life is going to be met with an eternal extinction. That's my thoughts, but I would love to hear others in the group, and I think there are a few other people who have interesting thoughts always to share, but are sometimes quiet. But Agabe, did that make sense, or do you have other thoughts?
Yes, yeah, like the second question, it makes sense to me because, from the tradition we hear there's no like non-existence. Yeah, it is maybe eternal punishment, but how is it gonna be like eternal, like a non-existence? That is, which is the pure punishment, actually.
Right. I think this might get into a line that I hope I don't confuse people about it, but to our experience, the thought of or the concept of non-existence is scary, feels very punishing. So as a thought, it exists for us, but we obviously have no experience or way of um, experiencing it, but the thought of it exists, and that in and of itself is a punishment within this life. If someone believes that the end of their life is complete extinction, complete annihilation, they would be experiencing that punishment within this life um, as a result of this also. So I think this is something we've always also emphasized, is that and the method of these readings is also that, yes, the grave is the door to a world far better than this world, is also symbolizing that my belief in the in knowing that the source of my existence is eternal, and hence my existence as a created being, as a reflection of that quality, also continues or can continue, is an experience of a world far better than this world while I live here. So I can live with that feeling, with that understanding within this world also, uh, and also at the same time have this understanding that it also alludes to another type of creation. So similarly with the second and third way, the punishment is certain after that, but it is also punishment within their thinking as they live through this this ideology that they adopt, or anyone adopts within this world. All right. Obviously, this passage continues, and we can see in this last section if there are other questions that come up. So it says that The last two ways are self-evident. They do not require proof. They're plain for all to see. So no one needs to be convinced of the contradiction, that the troubling contradiction for the second and third way, but I guess what we've always said, the beautiful contradiction for the first way, it is obvious. And since the appointed hour is secret and death may come at any time, um, it does not discriminate between the old and the young, will surely. So over here, the author is claiming that because one cannot say that, oh, because death only comes in old age or after one is, let's say, above 75, or I don't know, something. These days, I think old age keeps on getting longer and longer. So because it comes at a certain time, or because I'm healthy right now, this is not something that I need to investigate or try to solve at this time. This is obviously not the case, and because it is imminent, it can happen at any, and it can occur at any time, at any stage. The person should feel what we, I think these days are really what we call it anxiety. But it is a sense of urgency that something about my life needs attention. There is a contradiction in my life that I experience, that is self-evident to me, and it manifests in its symptoms as, let's say, anxiety for many people in these days. It speaks to a sense of urgency that someone should uh, try to investigate uh, this issue and seek an answer, um, and a means of transform. What is it says? The means to transform. So yeah, the means to transform this contradiction into something meaningful and something that makes sense, something that they can confirm, something that makes them feel confident in the conclusion that they come up with. And so the author is, in the example of this youth, is this sense of urgency of starting at any moment that you become aware of this contradiction. One question that I was thinking as I was reading this was that we also have this attitude, whether within us or in, we observe in the people around us, that the second or the third way, that there's also a general attitude of apathy, which is, it's strange, but it exists, where someone can be like, yeah, the end, I don't know what happens after death. I think I will become nothing and it doesn't matter what happens to me after death. And so I don't want to think about it, and it does not matter. And so this apathetic attitude, which if someone, uh, when people share it, and in my own interactions with people, it appears to me at first as if they're very convinced about it. But it was only a sign of, it is another manifestation of denial, of wanting to address this contradiction to me. This is what I understand this as. But apathy, there is an attitude of apathy which someone is not connecting to the fact that it is actually painful, that it is actually uncomfortable, but they make themselves, they convince themselves that it has no effect on them, and that it does not matter. I just thought that was from my own experience, something that I observe, and think about, how someone can just say, oh, it does not matter, and I'm not worried about it, by their words. And how is that even possible? And this last paragraph ends with, and it will be a question for him that looms as large as the world. And I was thinking about asking you all and myself, like, do we agree with this level of certainty that the author is putting? Like, Obviously, the expression that this is a question that looms large as the world is something that is really obvious, big, heavy, serious, urgent, that there is really nothing else that one should be thinking about um, other than this question itself. And I was interested in hearing if other people are able to agree to this degree of certainty about this this feeling, or or trying to make sense between what they experience themselves to be and what the reality around them indicates, which is constant change, decay, and ultimately death. So I'll give a little bit of a pause here, and I will um, see if anybody wants to participate, whether through the chat or any comment, thought, repetition, thinking out loud. All are welcome. Agape, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I also like see and experience a lot that, as you said, people say is like, I don't want to think, this apathy, and it's over. Like when the death comes, it's over. Like, and I don't want to think about it. That's what I also experience a lot. And you asked like second way. What was the question you did not understand in the second way?
Basically, like, these are the people who believe in the hereafter, but who approach it on this. I mean, they believe in it, but they also see it still as something that is confining them, and it's still painful to them in certain way, or not. Let's say meeting their their, I guess, desire or expectation. So um, yeah, I was wondering if, basically, how would you understand the second way is also another way of asking.
I think in the second way, like those, I put myself in the second way. Like I believe, but in my life, I'm not like acting accordingly. In fact, that is what I feel about second way.
Yeah, I mean, the the way that I was also understanding was that yes, there is you cannot deny your reality. We keep saying, or I keep saying reality, but I cannot deny my desire to um one, I cannot deny that I have a conception on a way to think about something that is eternal. I cannot deny that when I experience things in this life, and when I find them enjoyable or pleasurable, and comforting, I do not want them to end. The very thought of dying as extinction makes me very fearful and uncomfortable. So in that respect, I must then conclude that, you know, or actually not even conclude at this moment, but desire, or let's say wish, in another way of saying that there must be something, or a way of fulfilling or meeting or realizing these desires. Yet I guess I do not have fully the proof and certainty and the confirmation through my efforts to do so. And so this is where perhaps the second way is, that you are confirming something that is created within you, and you're not denying that aspect of you, but at the same time you are lacking in making the necessary commitment and the effort, as the author is sort of describing towards the end of this page, to really be sure and certain in yourself and be convinced, um, to the degree that you can be, given your qualities and abilities. And so there remains in it like a hesitation um, about what this could mean.
I feel like I feel in a way that I'm fully convinced, but I don't like. practically acting, I don't act in the way that I'm convicted. That's what I feel. The second way is more referring more, yeah, this in this way. It's my opinion, yeah, just.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Aisha Noor.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Thank you for your reflection so far. I was kind of looking at the text and reflecting over it, and it makes me wonder, because I think Brother Agabe is right in that, oftentimes the way that I find myself practically living, I do end up approaching death as a point of separation, right? Like, I have this potted plant on my balcony, and when the flower wilts after it's bloomed, I feel separated from it. I don't want it to wilt. So I wonder the extent to which, avoiding or not falling into that second way requires the state of me searching for continuous proofs of the hereafter. In that, I mean, me trying to live in such a way where I am continuously trying to witness the necessity of resurrection, where I am trying to witness how the one who is giving me life, who is giving life and existence to everything else, is also demonstrating that he will give continued existence. I guess, like, it falls on me, that responsibility of, in my day-to-day life, when I experience that flower, do I also then try to witness how it points to a necessary hereafter, how it points to a necessary resurrection? Do I try to be an active recipient of that message? Or do I try to remain an active witnesser of that, again, of that necessity of an hereafter? So I guess it's about, I guess this is something that we always discuss in our classes and our discussions, but that, it's, I would say, the first way, for those who believe, it says, for those who believe, sorry, 1 second. For those who believe the grave is the door to a world far better than the world. I might even slightly modify it to say, for those who continuously witness creation and reflect on it and witness the necessity of the hereafter in this world, the grave to the door is a world far better. Like, that belief requires this constant effort as a human being to utilize my given capacities, utilize my given ability to think and reflect, and search for ways in which my creator is letting me know that I will be taken care of, that death is not being sent to the gallows, that it is not eternal separation, right? I think it's the moment when I stop reflecting on that, or stop trying to actively cultivate that mindset, is when then perhaps I am on that path of dissipation and misguidance. So I guess it requires me to be an active participant in this. My creator is communicating something to me. Do I engage in that dialogue? Do I seek to engage in that dialogue? And those are some of my thoughts. Thank you. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. No, that was a good point to share about starting with the feeling of separation, that it is something akin to, let's say, even in our own travel, like when we are meeting family and we're leaving, we are sad about the separation, but we know we have to go because, let's say, the college semester is starting And so there is that sadness, but then there's also an acceptance of what you actually have to do, and there's no denial of it, of the fact that yes, college is important and you have to go. So it is, that's sort of the image that it reminded me of, in this, that someone, or us all, we are not denying the hereafter in this case, but we're also not actively confirming it, which is the, let's say, the quality or the feature of belief, that it needs to be an active process of confirmation, and it's not just because you're not denying something does not automatically mean that you are confirming the opposite, but rather it requires its own process, and the one that you've described and reminded us all of is one of constant engagement and questioning, and seeing within it the signs of continued existence. For only it is those signs of continuous existence that would remove the feeling of things going into some sort of loss, and yeah, that the loss does not, losing something or being separated from something does not equate to being for it being lost, but rather it is seeing the things as signs, or that separation itself, or the feeling of separation is a sign, that I am created with the need of union and coming together. So taking those feelings to mean to be signs in and of themselves. Agabe, I think your hand is up.
Yes, like it's exactly how Aishinur said. Like, are you having this consciousness continuously, actively, like when the flower goes to grave, like when it is, disappears? Is it becoming a door for you, for a world far better, which reminds you, or not? That is the question. Yeah.
Jazakallah. I believe Aishinur, your hand is up from the previous time.
No, it's another hand.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to add that I was talking, and all of you as well were talking about sort of curating or cultivating this active consciousness, and another voice in me kind of challenges that, and says, well, how am I supposed to actively think about the hereafter all the time, right? And so my other voice responded to it, and I just wanted to share my internal dialogue out loud, which is that, again, going back to the potted plant, like it's on my balcony. I see it every day, and the moment when it first started to flower, I felt that immense joy, right? Like something beautiful is coming. Beautiful is coming into existence. But as soon as I feel that, I also feel the fact that before it has even fully bloomed, oh, this flower is going to die. Like, I don't really have to force myself or artificially force myself to think about these matters or reflect on these matters. Like, I encounter them in my everyday life, in my everyday moments. I see the flower, I can't help but think about its death, right? Like that in itself, and you beautifully said it, in that very moment becomes a signpost for me, becomes a signifier of a greater meaning for me about my existence. In my interaction with that flower, a whole commentary on my entirety of my existence and my feelings and my humanness is being offered to me. So, just as I face separation and I face death at every moment of my life, right? Just from the very fact of one moment passing to another, like I don't have yesterday's version of myself, let alone last year's. Aishinur is gone. So in this constant sort of encounterance of death and separation, it becomes so conjoined with the necessity of a hereafter, the necessity of a one who is creating that feeling of sadness or pain within me, and upon reflection, recognizing that whoever gives that, I see is a merciful one, creating the beauty of that flower, creating the like and the relationship I have with that flower, that one must also be providing and nourishing my needs. So what I'm trying to say is that, one can say, and that one being myself, oh, how am I supposed to actively think about these matters or carry this sort of conscious mindset 24/7, right? I fail in doing that, absolutely. But at the same time, that the reminder of this truth, right, is continuously being offered to me every day, every moment. And it's about whether I am open to being a recipient of that message or not, or else I face that reality constantly. I can't escape from it. I don't have to, again, superficially conjure it or force myself to think about it. It's there, it's present, and it's asking for my attention, for my reflections always.
Jazakallah. Agape.
And again, for this self-evident, this last two ways, the topic. So I thought maybe, like as you said, the last two ways you already feel in this world, through doors, through graves, that this beautiful contradiction. But maybe for the first way, maybe like we need evidence, which we already studied, 10th word. Can he really, the create again this beautiful world? From this way, maybe we might also understand. We need maybe like extra evidences that whether he can create or not.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to bring in the concept of revelation, in the sense that it gets confirmed by a claim that there will be another type of creation after this one. So it's an interesting. Asim, did you have a point?
I just wanted to share based on, good comments. So why is the author telling us all this? That's what I was wondering about. For example, about the young people who came, had their concerns, and they wanted a solution for what they're facing. General life, everybody in our life also, we are also facing a lot of distractions. And of course, he says reasoning, basically human qualities, is something that has been given, but human being is definitely free to not use his human qualities, the reasoning, consciousness, conscience. And this is a major part of what the human being is. And the last paragraph also made the point about a very serious, awesome matter is available that is obvious to the human being who has not lost his human qualities, and he's searching for a solution. So just like these young people came to this author, hey, we are concerned. So one question to me is, are we really concerned about the hereafter? Is there something that, do we want this perpetuity of life or existing? Is that something that we are really concerned, or as the comment from Agabe was like, yeah, the second way, yeah, I do believe, but okay, do I die as a happy, good man? And yeah, I believe, and is that enough, or is there really a genuine concern for me? And the comment on the active participant, of course, using your human qualities is what the human being is expected to do. For me, at least, that makes sense. So one has to wonder, really, are we looking for a solution? Are we searching to deliver ourselves from this eternal extinction? Or are we really, somehow we have this reasoning, consciousness, this human ability to really work on ourselves and really make it realize the seriousness of our living here in this world. I mean, it's not really a joke, but something we have to really ponder over. Thank you.
Jazakallah for all the comments. And I'm just
Hey, sorry.
yes, Tolu.
Hi, yeah, sorry, I'm on my phone, so I couldn't put my hand up. I don't know if you have time, but I had a question from a comment that you had made a while back about separation as a sign, about how like things, how we lose things, and that's the sign to look at something. So I understand that part. The question I had was, okay, what do I do with that sign from there? But I don't know if we have the time, given that we're almost at the hour.
No, thank you for sharing your question, and we can obviously always start it. And it's not like at 11 o'clock, you know, there is loud bells and you know the computers crash. So we can take a few minutes. So I I think I'll relate your question to something that I was reflecting on as our friends were all sharing, is that yes, like it does, trying to understand the proof of the continuity of existence and one of fulfillment of one's desire for continuity does not need to be or should not be an artificial effort to convince oneself of it, because we are saying here that it is apparent and it is obvious. But one thing that you know, just from our discussions, I think we almost bring it up in every class, is that it is self-apparent if we have also sort of broken through our let's say the veils that we live with, which is they will be self-evident and apparent when one determines why things are happening in the first place, or what is causing things to happen in the first place. And obviously, if let's say looking at the flower on Aishanu's balcony, uh, if we think, if we in our worldview are considering that yes, you know, this flower is blooming in and of itself and then will decide on its own at some point to wilt and die, yeah, it will not mean anything to me, because it is just sort of like a random happening, something happening on its own. And I will not be forced to investigate into what this means to me, because it does not have any purpose, reason whatsoever. Yet, if I understand this as, no, this is actually implausible to think that, you know, these atoms or cells within themselves are like trying to decide when it's time to wilt or not, that this is not part of a conscious plan or will to that demonstrates the sophistication of this process. The very idea of the flower wilting will, and the experience of me and seeing that it is wilting and dying, this, let's say, moment of separation becomes a means of understanding that feeling as coming from the source that is responsible for the entire universe itself, which is one of order and purpose and let's say organization. And so in connecting, what do I do with this feeling of separation? I take it as a moment of reflecting on the fact that I am a created being with these feelings, and I don't choose to have these feelings of pain, but these feelings that I do experience then become as means of invitations, as messages that remind me of the cause of my existence or the source of my existence, and that this pain is just um, let's say a type of message for me to reflect on the one who has endowed me with the feeling of wanting to be, wanting things to continue to exist, for wanting to be, to experience, let's say, relationships and love and like feelings of that we find in family and amongst friends, that I've been created with those in order to reflect on the source of the feelings of love and kinship and continuity when it comes to separation. I tried a little bit, but we can definitely continue.
That was super
I will.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay. You want to add something more, Tolu?
No, I was just saying that was helpful. The idea of the reminder of I don't like this feeling of separation. It was a really good point, and then I think I can follow the thread a little bit from there. So thank you, I appreciate that.
All right. I will read the comment in the chat box, and then I'll give Agabe the microphone. So our friend writes, maybe we could say that people who fall into the second category fear death more than they feel Allah or God. I heard a tafsir of Surah Mulk where the Ustad noted that Allah created death and cited death as a phase of our existence, no different than the phase of existence we were in before we were born or conceived. We can see death as a transition, even a gift, assuming that the believer's death leads to Jannah and closer proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we tend not to, out of an attachment to an aware embodied life that is often precious to us, than a connection to Allah. A brief example, I'm getting back to waking up on time for Fajr, and it is hard. The hard problem for young Muslims waking up for Fajr. I lay in bed fighting myself to get up and pray. This morning, arguing with myself, I heard what I thought was a mouse and got up immediately. I don't want that mouse eating my food. Why? Because I need my food to live. Without food, I will die. I like that that's the fear you have of the mouse, that it will eat your food rather than just a fear of a furry little animal. Getting up to protect my food so that I can stay alive was easier than getting up to pray and save my soul. Thank you for sharing your reflection, and we can all read it and reflect on it further too. Agabe, go ahead.
Yeah, as you guys said, like there are always every day continuously we are facing with which the author says like graves, especially when you see people and especially young people, they always says I, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. So when those things like disappear, they feel bad. So the question is like, as author said, are we using those doors, those graves, to find the real happiness, and who can provide it? Are we asking these questions?
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting way to put it, the way you said, like that every moment that passes by is a door to a grave. And are we using them as moments of seeing them, perceiving them in the meaning that they impart, or are we trying to attach ourselves to the thing in itself and then hence feeling separation and pain and so forth? And so pain and separation, despair, all of these feelings coming out of the fact that the source of that change, let's say, or that uh, change into something that we don't like, we think that it is arbitrary, or that's like it has no reason, no explanation, no um, um, like it is sort of things on their own, and an atom has a will, can't figure out how it works, but it just decides to do so. And so that induces into me the idea of like chaos and confusion, and hence definitely pain and disorientation, because we do not see those as moments of part of a as as indicators of a source that must be that is operating as an absolute and eternal source. Okay. If there are any last thoughts or comments, thank you for everyone who participated, and thank you for sharing your chats also. We'll take time to reflect further on the thoughts that were shared. If there's nothing else at this moment, then we will finish here and start from page 156 next week, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين